Hello viewers, welcome to Hanson's Education channel. My name is Rajesh and today I'm going to discuss second part of the chapter How Far is the River by Ruskin Bond. In my previous video I discussed the first part of the chapter, and the first part of the chapter it concluded with the boy meeting the woodcutter, yes, and he inquired about how far the river was. So today we will discuss second part and we'll take it from here now. So when he met the woodcutter, he asked the woodcutter how far the river was. The woodcutter, who was short, but at the same time he was very powerful, and as he was coming from his work he was tired and therefore he was weathered face. So when that boy asked the woodcutter how far the river is, at this the woodcutter replied to the boy that the river was 7 miles away from here, and that was accurately the distance from the place where he met the woodcutter to the river. But the woodcutter, he asked the boy, "Why are you asking me what is the distance?" At this the boy said, "I am going to the river." The boy was just 12 years old and the river was 7 miles away. So the woodcutter, he could not understand why this boy was asking him that question. And when he said that I'm going to the river, at this what happened? The woodcutter said, "Are you going alone? Are you going alone?" The little boy, he was very excited. He was determined to go to the river. And then very excitedly he said, "Of course, I'm going alone." At this, hearing that he was going alone, the woodcutter, he was a bit worried about the boy, because he told him that it would take 3 hours to reach the river, and then when he returns back to home, by the time he returns, it will get dark. It will be getting dark. And above all, the road, it was not an easy road to cover. In order to reach the river, he had to cover a long distance, and the road which he had to cover or through which he had to walk, that was not an easy task, because a small boy and climbing the mountains, yes, walking through the mountains, it's not an easy task. So the woodcutter gave him the details that if you will reach there, it will take somewhere around 3 hours to reach there, and by the time you return, it will be getting dark, and the road is not an easy one. The boy, despite all these things, what was being said, it would take this much time, by the time you return, the boy did not give up. He was very excited. And then at this he replied to the woodcutter, "You don't have to worry about me. I'm a good walker." The boy, though he might have not walked such a long distance, but he was determined. He was confident that he could make to the river. And therefore, mostly what the boy had done, mostly the boy might have gone to the to his school, which might be a mile, 1 mile away from his home. He had never covered such a long distance, but the boy, he thought, no, it's okay. 7 miles, I'm a very good walker. I'll go and then I'll come back. And saying this, the boy carried on down the path. When the boy carried on down the path, at this, the woodcutter, he looked at him with some misgivings. Means what? The woodcutter was worried that this boy is going alone. Something might happen to him on the way. So what happened? He decided to keep an eye out for the boy on his way back from the market. Means, while he returns from the market, he will have an eye on the boy whether he has returned safely or not. The path was steep and the boy had to run most of the time. Normally the hilly areas you will not find even road. It is uneven, up and down, up and down. So the path was steep and the boy had to run most of the time. It was dizzy, unbalanced. Winding path means, winding means what? Taking turns, yes, complete turns. So sometimes he slipped once or twice. It was really challenging for the small boy, but he was determined to go to the river. Soon the boy was in the valley and the path stranded and it rose. He met a girl who was coming from the opposite direction. She held a long carved knife with which she had been cutting grasses. She had rings in her nose. She had rings in her nose and her ears. And her arms were filled with bangles. And whenever she moved her arms, the bangles made music. Then the boy asked the girl, can you tell me how far the river is? At this, what happened? The girl who had never been to the river, or might be she assumed that the boy was asking of the river, some other river, not behind the mountain. Most probably that girl might have never been to that river, or she might have thought that the boy was asking of different river. So very firmly, with full confidence, the girl replied that it is 20 miles away. The river is 20 miles away. Hearing this, the young boy, he started laughing. And then the boy laughed and ran down the path. Yes. Suddenly a parrot screeched. Yes. Flew low over his head, and the boy followed its dipping flight. Means the parrot which flew over his head, it was dipping. Yes, means it was going downwards. And the boy, it started following that bird until the path rose and the bird disappeared amongst the trees. And after that, what happened? He could hear a trickle of water. Yes, means he could hear the sound of water. Yes, a trickle of water came from the hillside, and the boy stopped to drink. The water was cold and sharp and very refreshing. Natural. It's very natural that if you walk for an hour Yes, you'll feel thirsty. The sun was very hot. The dusty path, it became hotter. The stones scorching the feet. Yes, he had walked for an hour. He had almost covered half of the distance. He had almost covered half of the distance, and if you walk for an hour, it's very natural that you will feel thirsty. And especially when you start feeling thirsty, if you see that water is somewhere around, though you were not thirsty, but if you'll see the water, it's very natural, it's very spontaneous that you will feel what? Thirsty. And if you find that the water is very clear, cold and sharp, you will wish to drink that water. So when he heard the trickle of water, he stopped there to drink water. And then he wondered, I have walked for an hour and I'm sure I must have covered half of the distance. Now only half distance is left to reach the river. So section 2 of the chapter, How Far is the River, ends here. In my next video, I shall discuss section 3 of the chapter, How Far is the River. This chapter is divided into 3 sections, first, second and third. So we have covered 2 sections. Please subscribe our channel for more videos. In my next video, I shall discuss section 3, means the last part of the chapter, How Far is the River by Ruskin Bond. Till then, take care. Bye.